Hello and welcome back to another out of spec detailing video. We're here today at Clear Detailing in Windsor, Colorado, and we've got yet another Rivian R1T in the shop today. I'm here to answer the question, has Rivian build quality improved or has it gotten worse since we've last made one of these videos? Let's take a dive in on this Rivian R1T and see how they're looking. And here we are with yet another viewer's Rivian R1T in the shop. I am absolutely humbled by all of you reaching out and wanting me to work on your vehicles. This is just the coolest experience to meet all of you guys and to have your vehicles in here getting detailed. Just so very cool. Now, I wanted to make this video on this truck because when I first got started on YouTube, it was with Kyle over on the Out of Spec Reviews page. I'll put a link in the video down below because we went through his entire vehicle looking at the build quality of around VIN 4000. This truck is nearly 10,000 vehicles produced later. So this VIN is around 13,200. So almost 10,000 vehicles later. I'm kind of curious to see, as they have ramped up this production, what are these trucks actually looking like that are being delivered today? There's a few things that I've seen that, in all honesty, are not so positive with these. So let's jump into it. I figured back here was good as place as any to start talking issues that I've been seeing on these Rivians. As you guys either do or don't know, these powered tonneau covers on the back of the R1Ts have been having some serious issues due to the gears and motors because they're only on one side. This is actually the first truck that I've seen a broken powered tonneau cover. Now, this truck, interesting enough, was actually delivered with a completely defective powered tonneau cover, not even operable. So this particular customer was given the option to either pass on this truck or take it, knowing that hopefully there's a fix coming for this. From my understanding, these vehicles are being delivered without a tonneau cover, not even one that is pushed in or out. So definitely some work needed to be done there. But let's start talking about some other things I've seen on these Rivians, because I've seen a lot of these through here. One of the biggest issues I've been seeing lately is very clunky closing of the actual lift gate here. And that has to do with this edge here. As you can see, this one has kind of been rubbed off. And what actually is happening here is that this is not closing. You'll see that it seems like it's closed, but every single R1T I see through the shop, this is an issue. So what happens here is this doesn't get latched. So typically what happens, you guys know how these work, you pop this open and you have access to more storage down here, right? So you would think that you close it over here or down on the middle. Let me show you what happens here. You go to shut it in the middle and it doesn't latch either side. So typically what people do is come back over here to where this is, they slam that down, but forget to get this side. So I make every customer known about this issue because what happens is when you push this up, it actually binds up here and makes this really crunchy noise. You hear that? So what I'm recommending doing, pressing this down, and it can be very tricky to do. As you can see, I can't even do it there. So maybe pushing on both sides when closing that. But every single truck I see has this little ripped edge here. Let's jump into talking panel gaps. And before we do, I just want to say that, you know, typically I'm not super particular about panel gaps. I get not every single manufacturer, or every single manufacturer rather, has issues with panel gaps. Typically what I see is like Porsches and Audis are extremely well built, but they do have their issues here and there. I gotta be honest, when I first saw a Rivian R1T, that was a video I made with Kyle over on the Out of Spec Reviews page, I was pretty blown away with his truck. I was like, how is a company producing a new vehicle like this? This is a low VIN, everything is super tight. What I've noticed is, as you guys have brung your trucks in here, they are kind of getting worse. So let's just jump in here and start looking at panel gaps. This has been one area I've really noticed a lot of difference. This is a pretty massive gap here, being able to stick almost the entire first knuckle of my pinky in down here, just not even sort of aligned well. If I jump over here, this side is quite a bit tighter. It's still a big gap, but really doesn't line up well at all. These up here have always been pretty darn nice and tight. From what I understand, these are single-use clips, but they always look pretty decent. One thing I've really noticed on these trucks lately is this kind of rear bumper piece never quite fits that well. This one is actually better than I've seen, but there's still quite a huge gap between the plastic and the actual paint there. If I jump over here to this side, you'll notice it's a heck of a lot tighter. So really quite a bit of misalignment there. Now I would say on this truck, probably the worst part is this front hood, front fender alignment. So let's start up here on the hood. This side is a lot tighter than this side. So as I come over here, check out the gap width there. It's quite chunky. I wouldn't say it's horrible, but a lot tighter over here. May not pick up on camera, but this side actually looks really nice and consistent, whereas this side just it's really thick down here and gets kind of narrower as it goes. The hood alignment at top does look pretty decent, but as I bring you over here, check this charge port out. Look at the misalignment here, just a huge gap here, very tight around here. Would not be surprised if this starts rubbing the paint off over time as this piece kind of gets worked in. But look at how tight that gap is. And bam, just a massive, massive gap there. As I come over to the door here, this looks pretty good in this area. Alignment on this door. As we go down though, look how horrible it gets down here. Extremely tight compared to up here. I've been seeing that very, very consistently with these Rivians. As I come back here, look at the alignment of this black plastic piece on the front and rear door. The back one actually sticks out quite a bit, and then we have a massive gap here and really quite tight over here. Been seeing a lot on this black plastic trim that the edges really don't line up well. The front one is quite a bit higher than the other ones. Let me jump over to the other side here and I'll show you some more issues. Now this side I will say looks quite a bit better than the other side, but let me point a few things out to you here. Number one, on this taillight, notice how tight this line is down here. Really, really tight, looks pretty darn nice. But then as we come up here, it's a little down, and as you can actually see, it doesn't line up with the light bar that goes across, so a little misalignment there. Another portion I've been noticing on pretty much every R1T that's come in, and this was with Kyle's too, is this gear tunnel here. Never really fits the greatest. I always think they need to kind of do one of these numbers to get that end a little higher, to get this tighter up here and this tighter down here, more aimed towards this. So here you can barely, let's go with the pinky here, can't get anything in there, whereas you can get a little bit more down here. So quite a bit bigger gap there. On this side, these are pretty big gaps in this area, but they look consistent. I also want you to notice here on this door how different this alignment is here. Kind of sticks out at the bottom, sticks out on the top, really nice and flush down the middle. Not perfect alignment, but that's being pretty darn nitpicky. We saw something similar on Kyle's, that this panel was pushed out a little bit, but wanted to make a note there. Now, this is one thing on these A-pillars that actually one of my clients has shown me, and I've been seeing it more and more lately on these trucks. When he picked up his customer delivered R1S, he goes, I have dents all over my A-pillar. I'm like, really? That's quite surprising. So look at this here. It's actually an impression here. And what this is actually what I believe to be clips pulling this, because this is plastic here, and it's pulling it in a certain area, leaving this almost dent-like look. Now there's another one here, as you can see more of a ripple in the light there. Nothing up top, but on the other side, let me flip around here one more time. This side looks pretty decent down low. There's a little bit of rippling here at the bottom, not the end of the world, but up here there was another impression. Let me see if I can find it here in the light. They're a lot easier to see in person. It's actually right here. So same location, that's why I'm thinking it's clips. Here, as I am just looking here, this rubber flap is just kind of hanging out here. Not really great alignment. Check out the roof panel here. This sits up, then it goes down into the glass. Let me get my hand out of there. But but you can see a pretty good gap there. And then on the other side, it goes down the opposite way. So definitely these tops are having some serious issues and how they're aligned compared with the body panels around them. Now over here, this was an interesting thing I noticed as well. Look in here, we've got this kind of like foam. I'm not sure exactly what that is here, just kind of sticking out. Doesn't really look the greatest and missing from back here. So just, I don't know, I keep seeing all these strange little things with these trucks lately that have kind of caused me to make this video. One thing I do want to show you, and I see this now on 3 trucks, is cracked interior wood. 2 of them I have seen cracked in this exact spot. So as you see here, we've got a huge crack going over here. I think this is going to be pretty common. I know that these are very, very tricky to make, but nonetheless, you shouldn't buy a $100,000 truck with cracked wood inside. Really not that nice. Here on the center console, I also had the same R1S customer say that his was delivered with a cracked one. Now, from my understanding, Rivian is replacing these, but I just wanted to make a note on that. The interiors, from what I've seen on the T's, have looked pretty good. Kyle has had some issues on his truck with the headliner, and actually the R1S press vehicle, I'm gonna leave a link in the description to that. The headliner you could pull down and literally stick your entire hand up into it. It was pulled down so much. Now, my intention with this video is not to bash Rivian. I've actually got one of the R1Ss on order from my wife, and knowing these build quality issues, does it really kill me? No, but I just want the people to be aware of what I've seen, because I have been fortunate enough to have so many Rivians through the shop. Now, areas like this are quite interesting as well. This is a fully powered hood here, as you guys either know or don't, but check it how far my fingers go here. So about halfway up the fingers. On this side, I mean, you can just go straight in there and it's just a huge gap. You can stick almost your entire knuckle into here. Really, really tricky alignment there. That's probably the worst one I've seen here on the hood. And again, this charge port has been having some issues as well. I've had some time to kind of work on this truck for a little while, so you're actually seeing this clip after the whole video was filmed, but it's gonna kind of go somewhere in the middle here. And I wanna show you a few strange pieces I found on here. And that has to do with kind of under door jams and a few other things I'm gonna show you. But here we are under the frunk. And starting off, I was noticing how weird this is aligned. This is really sitting up, and I started playing with it, and all of a sudden I realized, whoa. So none of these clips under here are actually even attached and do not clip in properly. So this is just sitting here flapping around. I'm sure you can probably hear that. Now on this side, this is a little tighter, but nothing here on the front seems to be popping up. Really quite strange. But yeah, this side just goes bam, and all of a sudden this is popping out. I'm gonna see if I can't maybe remove this and get this looking a little better, because this doesn't seem quite right to me. Up here on the actual hood, or frunk hood, this is something I notice on every single Rivian that comes through, and it's this weird little piece here, and this piece just sits here and taps around. What's strange with what they've done here is they've actually separated it from this back piece, but it's only attached by one point. So it just sits here and rattles. What I can imagine is, as you can see as it comes out here, is you could bump this or something can happen, and now you're putting that directly down on the paint. Now if I come over here, this side is exactly the same, and you'll notice this one was already misaligned. Just pretty weird. Now, speaking of like rubber seals, you'll notice this one is not really fitting the greatest here on the hood, which could let quite a bit more dirt under here. Now, speaking of sills, this is something I really want to point out, because this is very strange. I again want to make note of how off this door is, and I'm going to show you something on the inside that's quite strange. Coming here on the hinges, you'll notice that this screw up here actually has a paint stripped off of it. So I'm thinking that Rivian has already played with this door a little bit not making it look super right. But nonetheless, so we've got all of these rubber sills down here. You'll notice on this one, it's pulling out here and here. It looks to me like this isn't even clipped in properly. So quite interesting there as well. I was also, when I was cleaning up these door jambs, noticing that the driver's side really is not pushed in right. And you'll notice, look at the warping here in this weather stripping. And you can actually pull this up and move this entire piece. Nothing is clipped in quite right and it's bulging out. Really not super nice. Here on the back, we have more of the same, whereas this weather stripping is just kind of coming up here and everything just doesn't quite fit right. You'll notice a huge bulge there. The back here looks okay, but yeah, like you can stick your fingers in here and move the whole thing. It doesn't seem like it's properly attached. Now, the good thing is the other side looks quite good, actually. It looks really good. And this is what I've seen on Rivians before. This side is nice and tight. You notice all the weather stripping looks good. You cannot move any of this. Looks like it was properly set in. But something was going on with that driver's side over there. And if I pop over here, this has a little bit of warping, but everything really sits in here nice. There's no movement whatsoever. A little popping out here on the weather stripping, but nothing too severe. Another thing I noticed while I was working on this truck, this has the accessory racks. And I noticed that this side is not really fitting the greatest. So this little flap hides your key in here. And if you push this down, this one is not going down. And these tend to kind of move. So I'm wondering if these are just not locking in properly, even though it shows this is actually properly locked. But lots of movement there. I would imagine putting anything on top of there would make it a little bit more stable. But yeah, something to note there as well. The back one here is flapped open a little bit, whereas this side is doing somewhat the same, but yeah. This one looked the best out of any of them with a little gap here, but this side is super, super tight. Quite strange. This one is also tight as well. One more thing I want to point out on kind of panel alignment and body panels here. I noticed this earlier. So notice how the tailgate here on this side is really a raised edge. Let me come around here as well. You can see it's popped up quite a bit. But if I come over to this side, it's actually the opposite. It sits lower on this side. Yeah, one of those things again. So what I'm seeing is just a lot more missed panel alignment issues, kind of what we've seen in the past with Tesla. But yeah. So let's jump into the paint. As a detailer, one of the biggest things I focus on is paint. When these trucks come in, I do a lot of work with the paint because that's kind of the biggest thing on the vehicle is getting that dialed in, getting it ceramic coated, and looking as good as possible. So I want to tell you a little bit of a backstory and something that's going on that I really, really don't like. When we first made a video with Kyle's Rivian R1T, I'm again going to put that video in the link of the description here on this video. The paint looked really good. I was actually quite impressed. Again, one of those things I go, wow, this truck is really well built, but there's some issues with it. And it's not an issue that I was super concerned about because I see it with every manufacturer, but it had sanding marks on it. And on his truck, he's got these little spots all around it, and they're just these kind of like ghosty looking marks. They're about, I don't know, 2 inches in diameter. And I go, okay, so what they're doing here is they get a little speckle here on the clear coat, they quickly sand it, but they're not finishing it. So it was kind of these dull spots. And I actually saw the same thing down at the Rivian Service Center in Denver, noticing all of the trucks had that. For me as a detailer, it's not the end of the world because those are quite easy to fix. Let me show you an example over here. Now, this one is a little bit different, but I'm gonna hopefully be able to show you this on camera. Notice this spot here. So that's called a dust neb right there. So it's where a particle gets in the clear coat. So what Rivian has actually done here is they sanded it. So again, it's another little 2-inch spot here. And you can see where it ends and starts. So Up here at the top, you have quite a bit of orange peel, whereas down here, the orange peel kind of goes away. And as I move over that spot, you can see that. So what they were doing is leaving that, and it would be this like basically dull spot in the paint. So I like that this one is finished out. What I don't like, and what I've been seeing quite often lately, is these entire trucks are actually getting buffed. And this goes for only, from what I understand, our Denver Rivian service center, because I've only seen trucks from here. But what I'm noticing is these trucks come in with DA haze, so meaning that the trucks are polished but not very well. I can show you some of that on the pillars here maybe later, maybe even on the A pillars with the lights turned off. I just did a blue one, and the entire truck had DA haze all over it. It had been buffed. And let me show you some remnants of that here. So this truck, I have not touched this yet. So this just got washed. I came in here and dried it. Notice all of this white here. Now, this truck doesn't look as bad as far as all of this. I had a green R1T that I made a video on, and it had this stuff everywhere. Like it was all over the sides down here, on the wheel arches, down the sides, on the front, absolutely everywhere. This one doesn't look as bad. But what's happening here is these trucks are coming into our Denver Rivian service center here and being buffed. Again, I can't say that for every Rivian coming in across country. I just know the trucks that I've worked on lately have all been buffed like this. And I really, really don't like to see that. I kind of think what happened is that we kind of made that video exposing all of the little sanding marks over it, and they took a step too far and just decided every new vehicle is getting buffed. And you go, how do you know that? Okay, so a little bit of backstory. The other week, my dad and I go into Rivian because he got his first drive. He's actually got an R1T on order himself. And started talking to the guys there. He goes, oh, you're with Out of Spec. And yeah, I run the detailing channel, yada, yada. I go, I got a question for you. Are these trucks being buffed? And he kind of goes, yeah, so what's actually going on is we have every single truck that comes in gets fully buffed. And I go, so what is the purpose of that? He said, well, you know, they were having all these sanding marks and scratches and stuff when they come in. So we just decided every single one of them needs it. And I go, wow, that is really not the way I would have handled that. So long story short, I think what they're doing is the trucks come in, one guy is sitting back there buffing the entire truck and causing a lot of issues. Why is that an issue? Well, one, we've got all this staining here on the plastic. It is a pain in the butt to get out, even for someone like me as a detailer. The other thing is we're buffing this for kind of no reason. Now, I've made these videos talking about how new cars need paint correction, and they do. But what they're doing is actually just putting DA haze into these because they're not really properly buffing them. So we're taking the level of the paint down, taking some off, but then causing more issues. They're spending time and money. So it's this kind of weird situation we're in right now. What I would like to see Rivian do is like things like this on this side. So we had this sanding mark here. I would like to see that get fixed at the factory and then left alone. And let detailers who know what they're doing with paint actually buff them instead of having it done at the service center, because that causes delays, it causes a lot of issues. I just don't like to see that. So yeah, really kind of strange what's happened, progression over a few months. So turned off the lights here, and let me just show you what the actual DA haze I'm talking about looks like. So you can see around this light source here how it's kind of cloudy, has all of these marks on it. It should be very clear. So when I'm actually polishing and detailing these, I'm trying to get it to look as clear and dehazed as possible. That's part of the polishing. Now down here, if I go in, you can see the same thing here on the white, and this has been consistent with all the trucks. So what I'm saying is these trucks are, the entire things are being buffed. And this is just from our local Denver Rivian service center. I cannot, again, comment on the other ones, but this is what I've been seeing. Before I give my final thoughts and feelings, let's have a quick talk about this panel here. A Kyle was actually just here, had to run, but we were looking around this and he goes, well, this is a different panel than my truck. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, look at this. This is rubber and already really, really scratched up. This is definitely different. Typically what you see is this whole plastic piece goes over. It does not have this ridge and different materials and textures. This is really not wearing nice compared to the plastic. So my final thoughts and feelings on Rivian in general. I think as they have ramped up production, they are really understanding the pitfalls of trying to mass produce vehicles. I think they have been very proud of the trucks they've been producing, and reasonably so. I think they should have, because I, in all honesty, was quite surprised when I first saw Kyle's R1T in the shop here. I was like, I do not understand how this company is this new, building this amazing of a vehicle and still building them properly, because that is really, really tricky. I own probably one of the most controversial car brands over here, being a Tesla. My goal is to be objective with this channel and tell you guys the reality of it, because in the detailing industry, what we really get to is it either is or it isn't. The paint looks either really good or it doesn't. I mean, it's hard to have these in-betweens. Like the paint is either perfectly polished or it's not. There's a scratch there or there's not. The panels align or they don't. I mean, just take a look at this here. This is standing from feet back, but huge gap, tight gap, medium-sized gap. Really, really not the greatest. Now, I do want to say this is not something I'm trying to bash Rivian. More or less what I'm trying to do is give my opinions and my objective opinion on what this is actually looking like. Would this deter me from still buying a Rivian? 100% no. I still hold my R1S reservation. If my truck, or SUV in this case, came in like this, I would 100% still take delivery of it. I just think, in my opinion, these are one of the best electric vehicles on the road, bar none. So thank you guys so much for joining us on another out of spec detailing video. Let me know what you think and what have you guys seen on your Rivian R1T or R1Ss. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.